a message from Professor Nicole Lawrence about Rachel. Unfortunately, Professor Lawrence was not able to be here tonight, but I'm passing this on to her. So, entitled A Note on Friendship. Rachel Alyssa Hicks has published in Pikeville Review, Still, the Journal, Feminine Rising, and New Ohio Review. She taught English arts to children at the Charleston Montessori School, while also organizing events at the beloved indie bookstore Taylor Books. In 2005, I was like many of you, an English undergraduate here at Marshall, sitting in one of the stuffy Corley Hall rooms talking literature. It was in a poetry workshop that I met Rachel, a magnetic and brilliant person who wore pearls with her brand t-shirts. Connecting with Rachel changed the course of my life. The writing in class shifted away from satisfying assignments and into a realm of infinite possibility, a realm of art and personal expression. It was always this to a degree, but here we were, each other's yes men, entertaining all modes of expression, thinking about writing differently, writing as lifestyle and as essential as air. We later enrolled in graduate school together at Marshall. We took as many classes together as we could, and would walk to the Speedway and drink enormous coffees. There was no Starbucks here, and recite J. Alfred Prufrock in unison. We collaborated, made found poems, and modified famous poems to include silly stuff like Doritos and Santa Claus and Mooners. When I defended my thesis, Rachel brought cupcakes with pink swirls of icing. In my thesis, I quoted her as an authority like you would Emily Dickinson. I came to her first with everything. As naive, childlike, and even romanticized as all that sounds, behind it, we were as serious and as intense as any. I think about 2008 and the recession and the Iraq war and the few vocational prospects available to us, and the multiple jobs we scraped together to survive, and of course the grief we carried, losing people we loved most. We wrote about grief and we shared with each other poems that spoke to us. Rachel admired the poet Jane Kenyon, and I could see Kenyon in Rachel's own work, really focused on emotion, the rejection of too florid of language, a playfulness in melancholy, with the vibrancy of Sylvia Plath. Rachel's work serves as what Sandra Gilbert calls self-definition. There is self-observation, self-irony, tensions between the self and the external, largely the vast, confusing, multivalent realm of Appalachia, as beautiful, sublime, trash, poison, as urban and rural, as connected and isolated. Jane Kenyon, like Rachel, is someone gone way too soon. Jane left behind poems, and it was her partner, Donald Hall, who took the time to collect those. In the same way, Rachel's book has come to be because of the care and attention of those that love her and her work. After Marshall, Rachel received her MFA at West Virginia Wesleyan. Her book, Appalachian Ghost, Joining Down Your Hall, released in 2021, is comprised of poems from her thesis and other writings. Her parents and the founders of Beyond Birdsong Press have graciously donated some limited copies for tonight's event. Please grab an available copy after the reading, or you can learn more about Rachel and purchase a copy of the book at appalachianghost.com. It is an honor to showcase my friend and Marshall Alum, Rachel Hicks, and her new book, Appalachian Ghost, Floating Down Your Hall tonight, because, well, the book is incredible, as you will hear from our reader. I admire Rachel's work deeply, and like Kenyon with her feelings, I read her poems like they're outrageous flowers in the darkening June evening. I draw blossom in, and bending close, search it as a woman searches for a loved one's face. Poet Steve Scafferty once told me, there is no book or piece of writing or idea as important as the friend you share it with. In my closest closet, I have scores of letters from Rachel, texts, emails full of half-written poems. We helped each other. If 2008 was tough, 2022 is tougher, isn't it? And yet here we are, celebrating each other. Now, Kit Porter is going to come up and read a few poems from the collection. Thank you.
Me about 10 minutes ago, but we're going to do her best. Selected about 4 poems, beginning with calculations. I can never decide what to eat for lunch or dinner, but I do know that I'm getting tired of memories, especially ones that cling longer than others. Muddy vision, these memories hang like heavy wallpaper. I suppose if we live in a three-dimensional world, with time being the fourth dimension, it's all relative, as they say. But what does that even mean? That in this blip of a timeline we call our lives, there is no before or after, closer or farther, only right now, where it simply just isn't. I was never quite good at my math thoughts. Perhaps if I was, I could muster an equation to figure it all out. An algorithm full of various blended autumns, hot drugged summers, winters of years, February meltdowns and poinsettias, spring bird songs with morning cigarettes, smoke that curls around my face like Medusa snakes. But this equation creating is hard. I sit and I sit, reminding myself to look up at this silly life and ask if its stories deserve to be shared. Or is it just like a blip, the fallen tree scenario? The life happens and no one feels it. There is no static or remorse. Did it even happen? All I know is that the drugstore around the corner is still open, and we all flock to it like letters, vowels, and consonants on my tongue. Titled Untitled. I've been kissing ghosts since I was 12 years old. I can't say if it was real or just cravings for touch, that only a preteen girl could know. Who haunts the haunted? Does anyone care? I know I stared into the sun once for so long, I saw pink for days along with greens mixed with blue when I would close my eyes. I left that broken dollhouse in our dilapidated apartment, the green walls of our old home healing from the dampness of broken buildings breathing. The roof keeps cracking. The roof keeps cracking more and more, so much that I see moonlight through the slats. Who do the haunted haunt other than themselves? I look at the long hallway I used to walk back and forth over and over and over, because who can sleep in a house when there's no one to sleep with? In every room in this building, if every room in this building were a vein, then it is just as dirty as the veins that run inside of me. My lips are peeling to match the walls, fingertips crack like the ceiling. Sooner rather than later, I will be the one that is left haunting others, hoping ghosts that live in the walls will hold my hand, wrap each finger delicately around mine, and maybe even kiss my shallow cheek. Mountain family. This tired terrain mimics my sounds and fears. The caverns listen, echoing every whisper. Red rocks, red mud, brown trees in winter, green lush in summer. The mountains have become my mother, singing me softly to sleep. These mountains have become my father, scolding me before I sleep. These mountains have become my grandfather, dead before I see their true beauty. Only in dreams, they say. Only dreams show me oceans with blue waves, a never-ending coastline, a seagull that knows my name. Sometimes only mountains in dreams. Startled awake, I remember where I am. Going back the pink curtain, I see those familiar hills hugging my town. Sometimes I feel panic. Sometimes I feel love. But I know this landscape is haunting me. When good, these hills tell me bedtime stories so I can sleep in the laps of the mountain at night. This next one's titled Estates of Midnight. Today I stand in the Chartreuse Elk River with a man all in white, waiting for my baptism. I will be saved by him, the one with the capital H, who will forgive all our sins. With a Bible in my left hand, I graze empty milk jugs with my right index finger, tracing the outline of the bumpy plastic handles. The paper labels have all been washed off. Pieces of an air conditioner float on by, taking the place of all the stained glass, fish, and silver minnows that usually flit by, my pale chicken legs on a summer day. Bare and weak, I wait for the man to dip me underwater, cleanse me of all my wickedness. The licorice scent fills my nostrils and my head goes under, but not before I notice the silver mermaids covered in tin cans. The long hair has fallen away, tight It's like chunks and long blonde strands wrapped around my thumbs. Being closer to God involves a spatter, a splash, a stain, a burning in my lungs when I try to call out. Before rising back up to the sun, a realization hits that these decayed ladies going against the current are sirens singing my name. Their hymns sound like candy dripping in the heat, drawing me back in, serving me cups of foggy water to heal all my wounds.
For sharing that with us. So before we get started with hearing some work from our contributing readers, I just wanted to give this a short introduction and offer some thank yous. And I pray that you will forgive me for stumbling over myself because there is a reason I am a student of the written and not the spoken word. I have had a wonderful evolution in regard to this magazine. When I was a freshman here at Marshall in my first workshop classes, I remember vividly the insecurity I had at the thought of even submitting my stories for consideration. I thought it wasn't good enough and I was afraid of rejection. I'd make the usual commentary about what if I could see myself now, but I don't feel that way. I am grateful for the humbling ups and downs that have marked my time here at Marshall, and am all the more thankful to be standing here now in light of my uncertain beginnings as a student writer. Needless to say, etc. has become very special to me. I began as its admirer, its nearly 70-year tradition and what it represents, a creative portrait created for and by students meant to highlight the hidden gem that is Marshall's artistic community. And though I've now been both contributor and its editor-in-chief, I remain first and foremost its admirer. Tonight, I am thrilled to be here in person in celebration of the incredible creative talent being fostered at this university. Now, I hope you'll humor me as I go through the many, many thank yous I owe to everyone who's made this magazine a possibility. First, I want to say thank you to my staff, who managed to pull through for every deadline, make every decision thoughtfully, and collaborate so well, even without the ability to ever meet in person. Every single one of you is as diligent, patient, and driven as you are talented. I want you to know that this is a celebration of your work tonight. This magazine is a product of your dedication and creative vision, and you should be proud of the work you've done. Thank you also to our readers who stepped up with enthusiasm and the occasional dose of comedic relief in the team group chat during the more stressful days of this creative process. Each reader tackled the task set before them and left no submission without thoughtful commentary and consideration. You were truly an essential part of this team. I want to very sincerely thank all of the contributors who made this magazine a possibility. Thank you to the College of Liberal Arts for providing etc. with the resources and support it needs to be home to Marshall's creative talent. Thank you to the Office of Student Affairs, especially Matt Smith, whose faithful and generous contribution makes this magazine possible. Thank you to John Winters and all the staff in printing services. It is your hard work and attention to detail that allows us to print and publish this journal. I am incredibly appreciative of your patience with this process. A very special thank you to Dean Robert Buckwalter and Dr. Allison Carey for their thoughtful commitment to their students and appreciation for the arts. Thank you to Marissa Davis, who, despite being out of country in France when we contacted her, willingly and enthusiastically engaged in an interview which turned out to be such a wonderful addition to this year's issue. Marissa was kind and incredible in every interaction and thoughtful in all her responses. And I cannot express enough the gratitude I have for her participation in the 2022 issue. Thank you so much to the family of Chase Agnew for supporting this magazine in honor of their son. Your generosity is a part of the heartbeat of etc., and it is a privilege to get to honor Chase. I know his mother came out tonight, and I'm so grateful to get to share this evening with you. Thank you for the ever-patient and wonderful creative writing and art professors who let myself and my staff interrupt your classes both fall and spring semester to promote etc. I can say with confidence that without your guidance and support of your students, we wouldn't have the opportunity to display this incredible student work tonight. Lastly, I want to thank Joel and Rachel Peckham, without whose guidance and trust I would have neither the confidence nor clue of how to get to this point tonight. I want to emphasize how much I needed and appreciate the patient, reassuring responses to my frequent panic emails asking what's next. In all seriousness, Joel and Rachel's passion for this magazine and commitment to continuing this tradition and tandem with all the other work they do here at Marshall, and their steadfast mentorship and support of their students is truly integral to Etcetera's success from year to year. Their influence as teachers and advisors has been essential to me since I first came to Marshall, and their support has gotten me through this at times very challenging creative process. Thank you to the family of Rachel Hicks as well for being here this evening and for so generously supplying us with copies of her amazing book. Now, I would like to open the mic up to our first reader, Amy Welsh, with her lamentation. Thank you. In the heart of the valley, autumn is crisp, summer dead, morning. Mother called and then you listened, born of wild scorned elation. And you were adorned with sugar plum cheeks and red delicious apple lips, and sorghum eyes like gold rush trees, and olive oil hair drawn up like wild parsnips. Vandalia valleys birthed you, a little yellow buttercup, who had eggshell skin like self-rising flour, with a milk and honey glow, and a smile like baking soda, breath of baby powder, your little wristlet, or plump sourdough. You wondered why the church ladies wanted to keep you up. But you crawled out of the valley, not waving goodbye. You cut your buttercup hair into shreds, and those who wanted to eat you up spat you out. A golden labyrinth of stars and twinkling thread were too tangled to untie. Your legs grew out like tarantulas, and your skin reeked of mildew and drought. Material was your fortune, distant were your thoughts. But as you wander the dew musk of the afternoon, dances with the wood on a nearby porch, your consummation like Tennessee in June, when the weary traveler cries out by the lighted torch. With nature's paper and quill, you write your ink spilling your lies. When they read this, they should hold a corner on this page, because this chapter is important. It tells the tale of the buttercup girl in the gilded cage, which were taught to be important. The red delicious spoils and the buttermilk rocks. To the tempest, the weary traveler calls out, the mountains don't know her anymore. The sugar plum cheeks spread out, her eggshell skin adorned with stores. The buttercup girl is the wanderer in an endless void. If you weren't born to be so simple, they would have never found you so vile. If you were so sweet as dough, they should have left you out of the oven. All that remains is a somber tune escaping from bile. Your lonely voice is a whisper in the wind. The valley exiles those whose innocence is destroyed. But when the valley casts out scorn after you broke the gilded cage, the tempest welcomes you in the glory of its gallows. So in a window seat you sit alone in your old age, counting sheep and telling tales of fairies rescued by sirens' shadows. Thank you, Amy, for that. Now I would like to welcome up our next reader, Alexis Cavender, to speak. I don't know if the mic even works for you. What is sleep? Is it a valley we go to and dream for hours on end? A nocturnal haven, perhaps? It seems like a blessing and a curse. So much to do, so little time, yet it is highly valued. Why? Demotivation, meant to plague the mind, creeps in and ruins the spirit. Can't do anything. Don't have desire to do anything. It's sickening, this exhaustion, lack of sleep and suffocating worldviews. What's there to strive for? The soul is weary, the mind is broken. Nothing can save it, even if one sleeps for eternity. Sleep, place where insanity dies, has a place in the shadows, but we value it still. We value it because it saves us from ourselves. It saves us, but at what cost? What price does
someone pay for sanctuary. Sleep can be granted, but there is no escape from hell. The world falls apart, no matter how much we cry for rest. What is rest anymore? The peace died too long ago, and sleep is just distracting. So we neglect to use it out of fear. We fear damaging others, but we also damage ourselves, shattering like porcelain vases. What a waste. Alternatives for sleep are vile, but taste good on the tongue. Wishes to sleep forever exist, but that will not change what is to come. Thank you.
So much, Alexis. Now I'd like to welcome up Ashley Moore for her poem Dark Girl Self-Esteem.
So I signed up for this, but then, I forgot that I'm fine with it. Darkness. It's funny, I'm scared of the dark, so you would think I'd understand the fear you have when I walk by, yet I don't. Especially when my face is nothing but love and acceptance. Why does my darkness mean ugly, broken, and angry? Why don't I have the chance to be beautiful, period? I get cute for a dark girl. I only like white girls, they're just not my type. I guess it happens. I don't know how someone could overlook the plumpness of my lips, the curve of my hips, the dimple in my cheek, the rawness when I speak. But I'm just cute for a black girl, a dark girl, something that disappears when the lights go out. It's funny once, but then it becomes discouraging. Put the smile back on your face, your feelings are starting to show. No one wants to see that. They want the tears to laugh out. You've been made to hide everything from your heart to your face. Never your hands, that's too threatening. That's how you end up on a dark corner looking at death. Black girls don't cry. We're too tough, we've been through too much for a comment from a so-called friend that you'll never be good enough to hurt. Black girls cry all the time. It's just sometimes the tears won't show through. They hide from the disapproving and discouraging faces that laugh. Laugh, it's what you do best. Hide your thoughts and all your secrets. Don't tell, not yet, they'll run with it. Pull them in with your charm and personality. Let them need you before you throw in the towel. Make them want to know, but never show what lies beneath the smile that's perfectly cracked mirror that guided them to you. Distract them from the tar that is your skin, just long enough to begin the sin that is the dark skin. Don't forget, no matter how rich your chocolate is, it'll never be enough to be chosen. Tossed around by different men just for a taste, I've never tried black women. No offense. So here we go down this road, another man's secret, another man's guilty pleasure. Never the main chick that's reserved for the light skin. You know, the one with the curls that they just add water. They don't need the extra curl former and gel. But it's okay because you risked it for me, right? Until she finds out, and guess who's out of sight? Oh, well, you should have known. Over one man is under another. This one doesn't like to talk. He uses his fists, practices boxing in your face, and tells you did this. But once again, you don't get to be sad. You chose him. Or did the sadness in your eyes, the walk that said you believed his lies when he said he wouldn't do it again, whatever it was you pulled him in. And you're on the floor bleeding from your once beautiful dark skin. But then again, you were only beautiful for a black girl with dark skin.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I think you did a really good job, so I don't think you're bad at that. Gabrielle Casey is going to be our next speaker. Bodies in the river. Pontoon and fishing boats cut through the water in all directions. Where the water touched the land, piles of sticks and debris were stuck along the shoreline.
trapped by the waves. Claire, laying in the inner tube and stuffed in a life vest, was bumped up and down over the ripples. Her head was tilted back while her dark hair floated on the water. A few pieces of leaf were stuck in her locks. Her eyes watched her younger brother, Micah, on the dock swing. He was still soaked. Large beads of water dripped from his hair and tapped into the wood. In his hands, he fiddled with the gold chain he always wore. An inflamed cut was on the side of his chin. Micah, Claire began. I want to say, don't, just don't, okay? Micah replied. The sound of an approaching motor still haunted his mind. The smell of iron and crushing of metal plagued his senses. He forced his eyes upwards towards the lake house. The lights had been off for a while. No one stirred past the window curtains. From the dock, he could tell that no cars occupied the driveway. I'm sorry, Claire finished after a beat of silence. She stuck the bottom of her jaw into the opening of her life vest. Do you think he'll be back? He asked. Soon, I promise, Claire lied. Sighing, Michael pushed the hair out of his face with a swipe of his palm. His heel beat up and down on the dock. The sun was starting to set, turning the sky a light orange color. A breeze swept across the lake and through the surrounding trees. The summer was quickly fleeting. Movement caught his eyes as he watched his sister pull herself up out of the water. She handed him her inner tube and Micah tossed it against the wicker table. Going somewhere? He asked. Yeah, I'm taking the boat out again. Wanna come? Micah didn't answer. Claire walked over to the lever to lower the boat back down into the water and pulled it. The boat trembled on the lift as the hole sunk deeper into the lake. Wet, Micah said, appearing at the lever. He smiled weakly and took over while his sister hopped onto the boat. Together, the siblings launched the pontoon into the water and rowed out onto the lake. Micah took his place at the front, leaning heavily over the railing. The lake was crowded, with heavy-faced men at the wheels. There was an assortment of boats, but Micah noticed a lack of fishing gear, driving floatables and children. As Claire drove them deeper into the lake, Micah peered into one of the many coves. Along the shore, a group of men with long poles spoke through the brush and debris on the bank. Micah glanced back towards his sister. Are they looking for something? Let's find out, Claire said after a moment. A fishing boat skittered past the siblings, almost swiping the side of the pontoon. While Claire glared after the men, Micah heard a bit of the conversation. One man said to the other, tragic, absolutely tragic. What kind of a, and his voice faded into the distance. The pontoon bounced along the water in between other boats and their trails. Claire cut through the paths of other boaters and received no recognition or acknowledgement from these other boaters. Finally, she turned down a familiar cove, a cove they had been to several times every summer, where the family would park and swim and picnic on the water. The cove where Claire had taken Micah and the boat out alone to days before. A few boats had already beaten into the cove. One had Coast Guard written on it, with large orange letters. Claire eased up on the throttle and the pontoon stopped, floating in the dark water. Crickets and summer cicadas spoke loudly to each other. The laugh of the lake provided percussion. The siblings stood side by side, still wet as water beads fell onto the boat's floor. They went unnoticed by the Coast Guard and other boaters. Two bodies were pulled from the lake. A young woman with long dark hair matted from the waves. The other, a young boy, with something gold that sparkled against the fading sun. They were wrapped into sheets, floated and green in the water, already dead. Found it, Micah whispered. Finally, I replied.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Our next reader is going to be Bailey Weaver. I want you to touch me with the intent to rust, to infect me with your rot, so I will someday become immune, but not entirely like you, to where I oxidize in the torrent of water and steam. I could be reborn as your antithesis, shell hard and smoothed against those waves. Where it started was once a grain of sand, itching, stuck between my toes like a thorn, maybe a rose for some other, but a dagger to me. A fatal reminder of the wound that can never be sealed, I can be the edge to cut the thread for others, like a whip plunged through milky wax. A flame will spark to life from the flash of my steel, for the smoke and ash to rise once again. To be reborn is a selfish wish, for a world constantly changing like the seasons, where I feel stuck in winter, once in summer, where I once crossed oceans with crashing waves, typhoons that reclaim the grit. I forego my peace in lieu of beautiful transformation, rising out of the sea foam, a monolith of a dream once dreamt, a statue of sulfur and copper, will become a eulogy to the person I once was and a preamble to who I will be.
Thank you, Bailey. Our next reader is going to be Trinity Rowland.
It is empty except for. It was empty, save for you. Well, save for us, rather. You handed me the key and I fumbled with it because when I thought about it, I'd never really unlocked many doors before. And you were also the one who pushed me in when I was too awestruck by the hard looking space before me. This is it. And it was. And it was empty. This is home. But it wasn't until you squeezed my shoulders tight in your palms, persuading me to think maybe you were on something. If you were there at the center of my vision, the void in my peripheral didn't matter. It didn't exist. You took a picture of me so we could look back on the empty and be proud of the full. And then there were couches and chairs and tables. A lamp would look nice in that corner. And maybe we should paint that wall blue. Yeah, let's do it. But then perhaps we chose one end table too many, or perhaps the piano was overdoing it. Perhaps it was too full then. And perhaps that's why you had to leave, because there wasn't enough space anymore. Yet all too much space at the same time. I sat in your chair and I imagined you putting it all together, cursing at a missing screw under your breath. And I stared at that blue wall and I thought about how I secretly wanted it to be cream, but you liked blue because it looked like my eyes, and that was enough to keep me quiet. And I looked at that framed photo that sat on our side table because you'd get to hanging it up proper with time. But now that time was up. I remembered how I thought that room in that photo was so grossly spacious and intimidating. But now it looked so full compared to the one before me. It looked full because I was smiling there in the middle of all the vacancy. And there was someone to smile at.
Thank you, Trinity. And last but not least, Abigail Graham is going to be our last reader.
This is called fantasy. He becomes immersed in what he's reading, so much so that any outside stimuli are forgotten or ignored altogether. Distantly, there is recognition of conversations occurring around him. Some spark interest, but none register fully as he remains in another universe. One with colors so vibrant the eyes are nearly blinded. A universe that exists only to him and doesn't extend beyond that. This remains a sanctuary from others. The experiences of the world around him and the world inside cannot be the same. His mind, for instance, exists in his own universe. His body, on the other hand, corporeal, tangent. Both are of significance, but are unable to gel. The worlds will never collide, and yet they coexist. In his creative universe, there are majestic creatures similar to those in fairy tales told to young children. Dragons and goblins and mermaids and unicorns alike have their own lives worth living. He creates the characters and their interactions, but does he realize what he's doing? Or does he let the magic flow within and bring the characters to life via spellbook? Are his actions intentional and thoughtful, or otherwise careless and unplanned? There is pain to be felt despite the mind being separate from the body,
The lives of those he has created oftentimes overwhelm his own emotions. He becomes distant again to the outside world, the real world as many call it, even though both are real to him. His somewhat visceral reactions anytime a creation becomes gravely injured or ill alert the body to feel something, to do something. Maybe he can simply rewrite what has been done, erase and start again, but that's not feasible in his case. Unable to sacrifice his moral code, the man simply mourns his losses.
Before we give the Chase Atkins Award, with great thanks to Chase's family for sponsoring this every year, I just always feel like it's necessary and important to talk about Chase. Chase was a student of mine and Rachel's and many faculty members of the department. He was an incredibly talented poet, essayist, and musician. He was also blonde and blue-eyed, and it's pretty easy for me to see myself in him at times. It was like looking in a younger, more talented, better-looking mirror. I think about him all the time. He is never far from my thoughts. Rachel just a couple of days ago was playing an essay by him. He did a video essay, or was it a blog podcast? It was an audio essay, and it was. She asked me first if it was okay. And I said, of course. People think that when you experience grief, like that they need permission because something might trigger you. And the thing is, everything triggers you all the time. But it was incredible to hear his voice again. And it's always a good moment for me to be able to just take a second to remember a special student, a special talent that we lost. Before we give that award, I want you to have an understanding of what this award means to me, what the student meant to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel, for sharing words about Chase. So I am incredibly honored to be the one who gets to present this award tonight, having been the recipient of it before and knowing how special it is. Just some background for anybody who might not know. This award began in 2017, started by Chase's family to honor his memory. It is meant to go to students whose work is exceptional. Year to year, the editor-in-chief gets to choose a submission which is particularly outstanding, and the award goes to the author of said submission. The winner receives a generous check, as well as having their name on the Chase Atkins Memorial Award plaque displayed in the English department. It was emphasized to me from the moment I became editor-in-chief just how important this particular award is, but it didn't need to be. Knowing the memory of this incredible person, an incredible artist whom it honors, I purposed myself with the task of selecting the contributor whose work struck me as being truly outstanding. In content, in craft, and in form. Although I was certain whose submission struck those chords for me, my team only confirmed it with a unanimous vote for its selection. It is a great pleasure for me to announce that this year's recipient of the Chase Atkins Memorial Award is Amy Welsh for her incredible poem, For a Lamentation. Amy, your skill with both the English language and its beautiful packaging within the oftentimes complicated bounds of poetic form is truly special. Your creative use of food as imagery was as striking as your certain voice, which so beautifully charts the evolution of your subject. This poem is wonderfully peculiar and left me dwelling on its content long after I finished reading it. Congratulations, Amy. I am so happy to be presenting this award to you this evening.
Well, that concludes our program, but
There are brownies and cookies and coffee, I think.
but we'd like to acknowledge Molly's work this year, which was
just exceptional and remarkable because she had not had any editing experience before this year.
But I had no sponsoring experience. So basically Rachel basically trained me on the spot and Molly had to put up with me not knowing what I was doing a lot. So we
They needed
appreciate
no
it.
training. They're both just so talented. And Molly, I knew that you would do well in this role, even though I knew it would scare the hell out of you. I knew you would be fine because you have a great eye. You're as talented a reader as you are a writer. And I just have enjoyed watching you kind of come into your own these past couple of years, especially with Et Cetera. And thanks for trusting us when we asked you to do this work. So we have a small gift for you. So I have to open it now.
Thanks once again for everybody coming out. This was a great crowd and I appreciate it so much. Supporting student work is the most important thing we do here. The events that matter to us are these. So thank you for being here.
Have a good night. Be safe.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.